firstly, thank you so much for coming on and giving us, you know, your time. It's really valuable time, so we really do appreciate that. And I mentioned earlier, but I'll just go over it again, because we've got so many people that have registered, and they're from all over the globe. What a sick globe we have right now, but hopefully we can bring some light to that fairly soon. We'd love everyone to just keep your microphones muted and the videos off for now, just to save that bandwidth. And again, we will be able to see you all at the end. So we're hoping that we'll keep this, hopefully the webinar will go for about half an hour, maybe 40 minutes. So we're looking at keeping it under that hour for everyone. We will be stopping twice during the webinar, and if you do have any questions, can you pop them in the chat, because Linda is going to be, she's our beautiful co-host for today, and I'm waving my hands around like I'm at a leaderboard thing, you know, those lovely beautiful women that do that and twist and twirl. So Linda will be monitoring all of those questions as well in the chat section. So let's get started. Working from home. I don't know whether any of you can relate to this, but it's a scenario I'm just going to put to you where I've got a deadline due at 2 o'clock this afternoon. I've only got 2 hours to complete it. I can't get to it though, because I've got 3 kids at home. Tom's just fallen over and hurt his arm. The other 2 had a fight, and I'm about to break. The bin's overflowing. No one's thought to take it out. The sink is full. No one's emptied the dishwasher, and I have 15 minutes to complete this report. I go into the bathroom, and do you know what? Someone's put the toilet roll on the wrong way. And I'm about to lose my mind. That's, yeah, don't know. Can anyone relate to that little scenario? Just, I can imagine hands up. If you can relate, and I am going to ask you later, are you an over or an under with your toilet roll? Because there was a lady that we heard about that actually had a heart attack because people kept turning the toilet paper in the wrong way. It's something that can really stress some people out. That's enough for the straw to break the camel's back though. You know, it's those little things, isn't it, when we're working from home, or when we're under intense anxiety, or we're really stressful, we've got a million things going on at once. Now, we put this webinar on. I've been working from home for about 30 years, both with children, and I'm now a grandmother, so I just have my husband and my 2 dogs here working remotely, but we work remotely in our company, and it's been happening for quite some time. The biggest challenge is with us, now that we've got our work at home, is that lines of communication are being blurred. But not only being blurred, we're actually now contaminating our home, our inner sanctum, with the work. And we're going to talk a lot today about how we can actually unclutter and decontaminate so that we've got some really, really cool boundaries. So today we've got 4 things really that we're going to cover, which is that work-life balance at home. We're going to talk a lot about those blurred boundaries and looking at how we can really create some robust ones with the family and with our teammates as well. We're also going to look at, I want you to think about when you go to a buffet in a restaurant, there's so much food, and if you're anything like my girls who are now in their 30s, when they were little, they would just want to eat everything and be violently ill. We don't want any of that to happen. But I want you to think about all the strategies today as that buffet. You might not like all of them. You might only choose 1 or 2, and that's okay. We're then going to really drill down on a plan and an agreed outcome. This is not generic. Well, I suppose this is generic, but for you, you'll be able to take some of these strategies and really make a robust plan for working from home. So what are blurred boundaries? Well, they're the things that And I don't know how many people we have right now that have children at home that are possibly doing schoolwork. You might have your husband at home as well, wife, partner. You might also have then work colleagues also on Zoom or one of the other, what do we call them, one of the other tools that we're using. The thing that a lot of people that we're finding is a lot of people haven't done is had an agreed outcome or planned this working at home bit. It kind of has just happened. So what we're suggesting is that because our brain is a prediction tool, so we've got this a prediction organ really, we've got this beautiful brain that we carry and it loves certainty. And so because it loves certainty, a lot of emotions are getting quite heightened at the moment because these boundaries or our communication is quite blurred. So I'd love to suggest that when we talk about having a family meeting, I also want you to think about having a team meeting as well. So please put your family hat on and your team hat on when we're going through these. I want you to think about having this meeting and coming to some really great agreements. And one of them is, what does each person, including your children, what are their expectations around their day? What are their things that are really pressing for them? When does family time start and when does work, school life begin? So quite often we haven't got an agreed time and things are getting blurred. What kind of boundaries are we looking at implementing in this new way of working? So when we're talking about boundaries, what am I, who am I at this particular time of the day and who am I actually speaking to? And I'm going to expand on that as we go through. And these are questions that I want you to think about for your specific situation at home. And when we talk, sometimes we've got the people that have got a house full, and then we've also got people that are on their own, which quite like that, but might be feeling a bit uncomfortable about that as we go forward because they're used to going into the office and, you know, as humans, we're born to connect. I want you to also be thinking about what are those non-negotiables around those boundaries. And when we talk about non-negotiables, they're around, I have a really big meeting today, or I've got a really big report to do, or I've got a lecture that I have to listen to. And so I cannot be disturbed. So they're the non-negotiables that we're talking about. They're the things that you cannot bend. They're the work commitments that you also have. The challenge is we haven't actually communicated those or drilled down with the rest of the family potentially, or with our co-workers. So please, these are purely suggestions. I just want you to think of them. You might be really good at this, and if you are, we'd love you to share that at the end of the webinar with us if you are and have some really great strategies of your own. And think about now, what are the new habits that we want to create for this new normal to work? And I'm going to share, please don't tell anyone this, but I'm going to share something that happened this morning when I was on with Linda. My husband, we've got our laundry at the end of my office, we've got door shuts, and my husband came through stark naked when I had the video on, which I cannot tell you how embarrassed he was and how I had to quickly put my hand over the camera. Yeah, it could have been really, really bad. Fortunately, I got to the camera and then said to my husband, oh my goodness, this is a non-negotiable. Please do not come in here with no clothes on. They're part of my non-negotiables. Hopefully yours won't be like that. So what are the new habits? His new habit is wearing clothes all the time now that we're working from home. So in this family meeting, in this new form of communication, I want you to think of all of those questions, but I also want you to ask questions to everyone else as well. We call this perspective taking. See if you can stand in those shoes of, say, your children that have never done this before. What's pressing them? See if you can stand in their shoes and kind of ask the questions of them as, look, you know, what's going on in your world? What's important to you? And also the same goes for them with you. We really want for everyone to be trying to see things from everyone's perspective. And this is part of this original family meeting that you're going to be having with everyone. So you can set these boundaries, your non-negotiables, listen to everybody, and to really think about their perspective and their particular challenges. Or anxiety is something that is really creeping up for a lot of people. My grandson, he's just turning 10, he's got incredible anxiety at the moment because he can't see his friends. He's looking at all the can'ts rather than the pluses. So really think about trying to let people know from different perspectives. Now, there's a great tool. I'm going to assume that some of you may have seen the talking stick. And we use the talking stick a lot. It was developed by the ancient Indians, actually, as many, many years ago. There's actually not a date when it first became popular, but the talking stick is wonderful, particularly when you get emotions around a table or even a board table. And people, as you know, when people are anxious and emotions get high, it's really nice to have something that you can hand around to say, when you have the talking stick, this is, everyone is quiet and we listen to what you have to say until that talking stick is passed on. Now, I've also got a Harry Potter's hat here. It's the sorting hat, and I love the sorting hat. I'd love to have one at home. It's something that is also can be a bit of fun as well, so that whoever wears the hat is the one that is actually going to talk at that time. As you pass it around the table, so you can have a little bit of fun with this. We've got people, and I'm going to sort of dob Ember in here a little bit. When Ember started working from home, sorry Em, nothing is sacred, but when Em started working from home, there were no lines of when she started and when she finished work. And one of the things that we have a habit of doing is, and I can remember Em saying to me, you know, I'd say to Mum, right, I'm going to have morning tea at 10:30, and then she'd go, oh, I'll just do this piece, or I'll just do this piece of work. And come 2 o'clock, she hadn't eaten, and that's not good. And then she also mentioned, sorry Em, that she had to do her, because of the internet and the slowness, she had to do her shopping after 12 o'clock midnight. And you know, we started to then talk about some of these communication strategies. The other thing that I want you to think about in this family meeting and in a colleague meeting or a team meeting is what are those things when, how are we going to actually talk to each other? In what way are we going to do it? Again, what are those lovely non-negotiables? And I want you to then also think about, when does work time start and when does work time finish? When does school time start and when does school time finish? One of the things, another thing that we can fall into the habit of doing is, oh, just go and pop that washing on. See, the brain loves novelty. And if we're not careful, we'll end up doing a whole heap of household chores together with our work chores. We'll just pop in here, I'm just going to go over there, I'm just going to take the washing off. When you went to work, it was really clear boundaries that you actually put your clothes on, you walked out the door, you went to work, and then you actually came home and you did your chores and you started the cooking afterwards. And you know what? Our brain loves rituals, it loves routines, and it loves habits. So I'm going to ask that you think about an agreed time when everyone is going to start their work day. And when you're doing that, I want you to think about then getting dressed for your work day, including the kids. Get dressed for school, however long that school time is going to be, because it's part of that ritual that gives the brain certainty. And like I said, we're wired for novelty, so we want to try and get into some really lovely, robust routines. When we moved, my husband and I moved up here, you're going to feel very sorry for my husband by the end of this webinar, I think. But when my husband and I moved up, I missed having a girlfriend, and my husband is a fixer. He's a mechanical fitter, so he loves fixing things. And every time I'd bring up a little challenge, he would want to fix it, and all I would want to do was talk. I didn't want anyone to fix it, I just wanted to talk. So I actually used the hat. And the hat for me came from Edward de Bono, who wrote The 6 Hats of Thinking. And the hat's really great because it puts some really lovely boundaries around who's talking and who you are at the time. So my husband, I taught him through this to be my girlfriend. And this is what it looks like to be my girlfriend. You just listen, you don't fix me, you let me talk. And what happened with this ritual, I would say to him, honey, I need you to wear your girlfriend hat. And can you imagine, I hope you can imagine sitting there at home right now thinking, oh, wow, okay, you're actually communicating to this person and actually telling him what you need him to be, the kind of communication that you need from him. And he equally did that to me. The same with one of these other lovely tools is when you're at home and you've started work, you want to put your mum work hat on, or your dad work hat on, or the student work hat. Because again, it says, I'm now in work mode. I'm a very different person in work mode than I am in home mode when I've got my jammies on and I've relaxed. And so that voice, that authoritative voice that we often have when we're at work, the kids won't understand that voice, or they'll mistake your intention. So it's a really good idea, again, to really get some robust boundaries, to say, hey, I'm now putting my work hat on. And even maybe say, if I turn around and I'm in strategy mode and I turn around and I answer you quickly, I'm not angry with you. It's just that I've got my work hat on right now. So these are lovely rituals that, that we can use. I think I have lost my place where we were actually going to stop. Oh, here it is. I've got it now. Sorry, I'm just catching up with myself as well. So the next thing, although actually, what do you think, Linda? Is there some questions? Will we stop here?
There's no questions in the chat pane at the moment, but I'm wondering if people have some questions, if you want to pop them in now, and we can pause a little bit later on and get back to them.
That's a great idea. Okay, thank you. So this is the talking stick and the hat. Now, you know, some people also use, I've often used a ball to pass it around. So don't be constrained by a talking stick or a hat. You can use anything in your workplace, but also equally at the office as well. Some more tools. Priming, visualization and mindfulness. Look, we could spend hours and hours on each of these because they're very different. Again, because the brain loves certainty, and it also loves a ritual, and it also loves to know what we're doing and that I'm able to do my work right now. I want you to think about how you're priming yourself on a daily basis. What are the kind of things that are in your mind? So I'm priming myself to go to work, which means I'm going to put my work gear on. I'm going to start at a certain time. I'm going to finish at a certain time. Visualization and mindfulness. I want you to think about what you're visualizing in relation to, is the picture that I have in my mind the same as what everybody else understands? So when I am starting my work, what kind of picture, what am I visualizing for the day? How's my day going? And I want you to think about also with that, your inner narrative. How is that? Is that useful, or is that maybe not serving you, and do we need to reframe that? And that, again, that's about priming our brain. And just an example of that, have you ever gone, someone said, can you grab the salt from the cupboard? And you get up and go, oh goodness, I bet you I can't find the salt. You go to look, the salt's sitting there, but you actually can't see it. What we've done is give ourselves an embedded command to say, I can't find the salt. Then someone else comes and grabs the salt. And that's what actually happens. So priming is really useful in relation to how you're going to go about doing your day. Visualization, really think about sports people, they visualize all the time about doing that one great golf hit, and they'll do it over and over again. And again, a lot of you, we know a lot about neuroplasticity now, so looking at those neural pathways and how we can actually direct where our head's going. So I want you to think also about, is your mind full or are you being mindful? Because there's a really big difference. And with the way that we're working and with so much in our workplace at the moment, there are a lot of distractions that I'm going to talk to you about around different things that, again, knowing the brain's wired for novelty, we love, I'll just take that phone call, or I'll just, oh, that's right, I've just got to ring that person, and then not focus on the task at hand. Well, your workspace. Have you agreed, and again, these are conversations for that family meeting. Have you agreed to a workspace for everyone? Because if you haven't, I want you to think about the type of work that everyone in your household is doing. And this is where having a morning meeting, so you're going to have your family meeting or team meeting first. And then every morning I want you to have a team meeting with your family or with your team. And I want you to ask questions like, what's on your day? When are the times that you need to do certain things? And what kind of space do you need to do that with? Is it on the table? Is it on the bench? Is it in a room? So have a think about perhaps having a timetable for the different spaces around your home, especially if you've got a full household. If you're like me, I've got an office, I don't have to vie for that space. But I think, you know, looking at and having that as part of your conversation is really important. And Linda and I were chatting earlier, and I'd also love to see that I've got one of those sit-down, stand-up desks, and I've got it every half an hour. I stand up for half an hour and I sit down for half an hour. So because a lot of you might not have that at your home, I want you to think about maybe moving around onto your desk, the kitchen bench perhaps, and standing up and doing some work. Our bodies, we're not meant to be sitting for 8 hours. And one of the added benefits of this stand-up, sit-down desk is by the end of the day, I was finding I wasn't fatigued because I was having the blood circulating, and I was so much more brighter by the end of the day. So I want you to think about what you're doing from an ergonomics perspective as well. I hope this is making sense for everyone. Can you just pop in the chat that this is actually useful right now? That would be really lovely. So how do we negotiate all of this? So far we've gone through a whole range of different things we can do in this family meeting. We can look at the workspace. We can have the negotiation around that. I think this next part is probably one of my favorites, because there are, okay, so it's going to be the slide after this one, but it's going to be as important. We've got, this is really important, and Linda actually termed this phrase back in 2011. I want you to think about, what are you paying attention to? And I'm going to let you read that, because I think it's really apt and it's going to help us with what we've got coming up next. So I'm just going to be quiet for a minute. So I'm hoping that you've all read that. I recently took my grandchildren, my eldest is 15 and the youngest is turning 9, to the pool. And I was amazed at all of the parents had their head down, and including grandparents, head down in their phones, and the kids were swimming. And I'm sure that you've possibly had this experience. Have a think about where your attention is placed. See, our attention is a limited resource. And as you know, we are born to connect. So that beautiful eye contact, you know, how do you feel when someone pays you absolutely 100% attention? This is really important to let everybody know during your day when you can actually pay them attention. Because what happens is when we're working and we might be working away on whatever that is, and then we'll move to someone, you know, you'll have a distraction, one of the kids comes in or a co-worker might ring and you'll pick up that phone, and all of a sudden we get what we call attention residue. So our attention goes from what we've been working on, and I'll often pull away from the computer because it's like a, you know, you get sucked into this vortex thing called a computer at times, and my husband will come and stand at the door and I'll turn around with this look on my face. He'll have said something to me, but I won't quite have got it because my attention is still placed in my computer. Sure, I've got a lot of nods around the place, and he'll look at me and he'll say, "You okay?" And I'm going, "Yeah, my head's still in my computer." So it's a really nice thing to start getting some language around, you know, where is your attention, and become really self-aware. Be the scientist of your own experience, and, you know, have a think about what you're paying attention to, and are you distracted? And we're going to talk a lot about that right now with what we call deep work and shallow work. Cal Newport, he's a professor of economics, wrote a fabulous book. I really do urge you to get it, called Deep Work. And he did a lot of study around how we get into what we call that lovely flow state. And I'm imagining that everyone also is perhaps nodding their head. With deep work, it's the work that we do when we're on a report or we need 100% focused attention. Now, between you and me, our brain, it can only do deep work for around 90 minutes, and that's only if it's uninterrupted. If our work is interrupted, you know, when you have that report to do, or you've really got to focus on some numbers, a spreadsheet, or the kids might have a lecture that they've really got to focus on, your teammates, it could be a work thing. Whatever it is, you need to be 100% focused. Otherwise, we won't retain the information. And if someone comes to you and distracts you, do you know it takes up to 45 minutes for you to get back into that flow again? So the magic formula for deep work, and I'll talk about shallow work in a moment, the magic formula is deep work for 90 minutes, have a break for 90 minutes where you do shallow work, which is where you answer your emails, because the emails that pop up, that's a distraction. The phone, even being on, your brain is still wired for novelty. It's going to want to check who's just rung, or how many likes have I got on Facebook, or I need to check my social media. So I actually now, if I'm doing deep work, I turn my phone off, absolutely off, and I put it into another room, because we're priming our brain for success and for focus. Now the challenge, shallow work, when we come into shallow work, that is just doing that work that requires no really deep thinking. So deep work for 90 minutes, 90-minute break, and 90 minutes at the end of that is about all that our brain can do. So I want you to think about, when are your brain-friendly times? When, and you'll know it, you'll know that time that you can absolutely get into that kind of work. So, family meeting. Who has deep work today? Who has focused work? Now, this is where we start this lovely negotiation. We start to really get some defined boundaries with our family and or co-workers, where we can say, imagine Charlie's my husband. Charlie, when do you have to do deep work? What kind of work are you doing today? And he might say, look, 2 o'clock this afternoon, I need an hour. And then this is where the beautiful negotiation comes in. Can you please, I'm going to go into the bedroom. Can you please make sure that the kids and the dogs and the cats and whoever else, that I can just have at least an hour to do that work. So this is where working from home can really work with a negotiated discussion. It could also be that the kids will help with this. So they might have a certain time and might need a certain space that you're occupying at the moment. And so this is where that lovely negotiation comes at that family meeting. And not just at that one family meeting, but every morning, find out what people's non-negotiables are, find out what their deep work is and when, and how as a wonderful team you can work together to have a successful outcome. And also no anxiety or people snapping, which is a really cool thing. So would now be a good time to have a stop. Have we got any questions at all up to this point?
Yes, we do, Penny. There's a great question from Catherine around that she doesn't have a chance to do any deep work because her 8-year-old daughter is doing learning at home. So there's constant shallow work, and how does she do any study unless it's in the evening when she's really fatigued?
Yeah, and that's a really good question. And it's funny, I just had this actually with a lovely lady from South Australia who had exactly the same thing. And one of the things, the frustration that you will have if you've got a little one at home and you don't have any support is don't even try to do that deep work, because you really will get frustrated. It might mean getting up that hour earlier and having that as a negotiated time. Deep work or that flow state, it honestly, it doesn't work unless you've got someone with you or during that nap time, but it is really important. So if you can even negotiate that with your little one perhaps, and I've got a bit of a strategy that's going to come up that might help with that negotiation as well. But yeah, it is a challenge, but it is about getting up that hour or two earlier and diving in. I'm studying at the moment, and as much as I've only got my husband at home, with my work life, I'm actually getting up a couple of hours earlier just so I can do some study every day and get into that non-stop deep work. So I hope that helps a little.
Can I just add one thought too, Penny, if that's okay? I think one of the things we need to do at this time is reach out to people and ask for help. You know, if you've got a grandma, a grandpa, an auntie, an uncle, a neighbour that could actually jump on Zoom, your little one shares their screen and they actually commit to spending time with your child for an hour, to give you an hour where you know that you can do deep work. So I think reaching out and asking for help at these times is really important as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Absolutely. And I'm hoping that that's exactly what you can do. If you can't, it might be a neighbour, some lovely person that really wants to adopt a grandchild, perhaps. I've got some traffic lights up here, and we call this, you can use this, it's just one strategy, but it's what we call our traffic light system. And we all know what happens to traffic lights. So red means stop, amber means, okay, you can go through, but you better hurry because it's about to go red. And of course, green is good to go. In a lot of our organisations, also with open offices are not brain friendly at all. And I'm sure that those of you that have experienced that, Facebook, they had really, really proud. They had something like 3,000 people sharing an open office when they first designed it, thinking it was the best thing since sliced bread, but of course it really isn't. So a really good thing when you've got a lot of people around is to cut out a red dot, a big red dot. You should see my hands, I've got them up at the screen. So a big red dot, a big amber dot and a big green dot. Now, sometimes when we're negotiating space, we don't have the luxury of going into a room or it's occupied by someone else. But we need to still communicate out to people that please just don't disturb me because I really need to think about this particular spreadsheet or this report. Pop a big red dot on the back of your chair. And that tells people that, you know what, I just need to leave her or him alone just for an hour. And this is agreed at the family meeting, that when I've got the red dot, please leave me for at least an hour because I need to really focus. No interruptions, not negotiable. It's one of the non-negotiables that we were telling you about. The amber dot says, look, absolutely, if it's urgent, come and disturb me. But if it is not urgent, can you please, I will absolutely give you my 100% attention in 1 hour's time. And of course, green dot is when you're doing your shallow work. So we've got people now that are putting dots on bedroom doors, please don't disturb, because they're using their house. And again, we want to get some really solid boundaries around that communication. The other thing that you can do with the traffic light communication strategy is also use it to have conversation, and an unemotional conversation. So if you're in a meeting and it could be getting heated perhaps, or with the kids, we had a webinar yesterday and one of the mothers said, look, I'm about to kill my 3. Seriously, I am going, and I said, I've had to negotiate with my daughters so that I still have grandchildren at the end of this, because they're about to kill the kids as well. So things get heated, and using the traffic light, using hey, you know what, I'm a bit red at the moment, which is, look, I'm not comfortable with this conversation. And again, we agree the terms of that communication. I'm not comfortable with this at the moment. Can you give me a little bit to process so that when I'm green, it's good to go. We don't have to say exactly what's wrong, because sometimes we actually don't know what's wrong right then. We just know that we've got a feeling. So this agreed form of communication, you can use the traffic light, you can use the dots. And Linda created with one of our lovely students, the duck. Every time they all got like a yellow duck, and they painted the duck in different colours. And whenever someone had the duck on top of their computer, it meant, please, I'm doing deep work, or I need to focus. So can you stay away for an hour? So it can be anything from around the house. It doesn't have to be a dot, but the kids love colouring in the dot. So it also creates a really, really, really safe space. This is probably the most important out of everything, is creating the right environment for a successful day. Now, this includes everyone, from even down to the food that you're taking. Just because you're at home, prep on the weekend. Treat it as if you are at work. Make sure that that people know who's communicating. I've got my work hat on right now, or I've now taken my work hat off and I've turned back into mum, the fun mum, not the work mum again, or dad. So it's about creating this beautiful environment, and we really do suggest that you have these in the first meeting negotiated, and then we find out and we look at everyone's perspective every single morning. How's it going? Maybe over breakfast, but have your start times and your finish times. Change your clothes. Be as if you are at work. And this is part of that priming and that wonderful visualization. This is a part of the successful day. Maybe do something up like this and put it on the fridge. You know, I wake up, we do our family stuff, we do our chores, we get dressed, we start work at whatever time that is. We then have our agreed breaks, or not, because not everybody's schedule is going to meld. We finish work, and we get it changed into our comfy clothes. So set yourself up for success by working from home with all of your agreed strategies, and that way we're not going to have these blurred boundaries. People are not going to get confused. So family meetings, do some perspective taking, and again with your teammates as well. Communication is really key. Priming yourself for success is really important, and looking at the Navy SEALs did a wonderful thing where they wanted to dampen down some of their responses, and a neuroscientist went to them because they were having a lot of people that were not successful in terms of I think they had almost a 50% fail rate because people were couldn't dampen down their fear response when they were thrown in. I mean, you know, imagine being underwater for a period of time and people ripping your mask and your snorkel out of your mouth. I think I'd be a little bit fearful as well. So what the neuroscientist came up with was really 4 simple steps, and that was breathing. If you change your breathing, when we get elevated feelings, we will heighten in our breathing. So take some really deep breaths and slow that breathing down, and in fact change your physiology. Stand up, move away from whatever chair that is. It was also, they looked at little chunks. Don't think about the end of the day. Think about just getting to morning tea. So bring things down to little chunks, little pieces. What are you visualizing? You know, is it something that is really going to serve me for the day, or do I need to change that? And what are you being mindful about? And is your mind full or not? Or is it just you're being mindful? Think about your workspace and what that looks like, and negotiate that with the family. And don't forget to stand up. You know, stand up, take that computer. So we're looking after our bodies and our minds. Deep work, negotiate that with everybody. When have I got to focus? And for that lovely lady that really take Linda's advice, see if you can just carve out a chunk of time so that is your time, so you can focus. And if not, be like me and get up a little bit earlier, and you know, or when the little ones have gone to bed. But you know, that might not be your time. I know some people though, their best time is at 11 o'clock at night. Hey Dave, he's giggling. Where's your attention placed? Is it placed on that role or with that person? And if you've got a lot of distractions, something really good to do is to have a distraction management plan so that you can eliminate those distractions, like the email pop-ups, like your phone, like checking social media. Perhaps maybe do that 3 times a day instead of every hour, or thinking about that instant gratification of that like that you might have received. Creating the right environment for a successful day, and of course timing. You know, really get some robust non-negotiables around your time schedules. But when's your home going to be your home? And when's it going to be your office? Let's not blur those lines anymore. And finally, you have some home play. What we'd love you to do is take this buffet that we've given you, and look, even if you just take one thing, or you might say, no, I'm going to eat the whole lot. God, I really like this. Plan for success. Make sure you have no naked husband if you are on Zoom going past. So they're parts of my non-negotiables now. Clothes in the house, thank you. And we've also got, and I'm going to open it up for questions, and I'll take the slide off in a minute. But we've got a whole lot of resources for you, and they're all free. This was our way of giving back to you. Have a look at, or take a photo if you can, of this, or we'll send it in a one-pager for you. But we've done some little snippets. They're only about 1.5 minutes, sometimes 2 minutes, and go to our YouTube page. On Facebook, we've got our Facebook page with a whole range of really cool things that you can use and send around to people, and they're all our gift to you. So I'd really like to thank you for listening, and I look forward to lots of questions or seeing your gorgeous faces. So thank you.
Penny, I've got a couple of questions that you might want to take and respond to.
Yeah.
There was one around very difficult to engage in deep work when the group chat button is, you know, when people are doing group chats, and so you're constantly interrupted by that message coming in. Would you like to share your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I'd love to. Look, and I think that's a really good one, but that's another distraction and it's another novelty thing. So you won't be able to get into deep work when that is happening. So one of our strategies is by talking to your teammates and saying, hey, when I've got a report that I'm going to do from 11 o'clock till 12 o'clock today, I'm not going to be on group chat. Negotiate that with them, because honestly, your productivity, it will go up. And one of the things with doing the deep work and really planning your day with a distraction management plan is we look at that unrealized potential that you can actually get in your work day, so, because you have more time and you've got more bandwidth. So maybe have a think about if that can be negotiated and if you can go off for just whatever time it is. Linda, have you got anything to add to that?
One of the things that I think has worked really well in organisations, because I think this has happened, you know, pre-COVID-19, where, you know, we constantly have message on, we constantly have our email alert on, is to negotiate with the team what we call an hour of power. And the hour of power is your deep work time. So, you know, with your team, you can talk about that, and actually then the message stuff is all disabled at that point in time, so you can engage in that deep work. So another quick suggestion.
Yeah, lovely. I was just noticing on the chat, I'm glad to see that there's some toilet roll overs. I'm an over, just saying. In hospitality, it's always over. Amazing how many people find that quite funny. Anything else? Is there anything else that you would like us, perhaps even to do another webinar about, or any questions? Happy for you to pop on your video. No? All good? Well, thank you. Hi, Nick.
Can I just add one point onto your great suggestion there around the traffic light system, Pen?
Yeah, lovely.
The greatest saboteur in that whole process is ourselves.
Yeah, nice.
When someone walks up to our desk and says, oh, I know you've got your red light on, but can I just ask a question? And that moment is really, really important, whether, you know, how we deal with that, whether we just allow them or whether we don't. And yeah, that's probably, like, for me, that's the most important thing in that system, is knowing what your plan is going to be when somebody breaks the rules.
So
inevitably will.
We have to negotiate with ourselves as well around our own non-negotiables.
And be ready when people break the rules, and know what to do when they break the rules, because they will.
Yeah, that's lovely. Thanks, Nick.
A great session. Loved it. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks for coming. So if there is anyone else got anything for Linda or myself, or Nick? Well, otherwise, we'd really like to say thank you for coming. And look, please, we'll send you, go on to one of these sites. We'll also send this out to you as well, just so that you can pop in and grab some of those fabulous resources. But thank you, everyone. We did promise that we'd keep it under an hour, and I think we've done that really well. Unless anyone's got any other questions, we might... I'd like to really thank you on behalf of myself and Linda. So yeah, thanks everyone. And we hope you got a lot of value out of it, by the way. Yep, done.
There was just a question there from Catherine Penny about one of my clients, HR business partner, has a different clients booked back-to-back MS team sessions with her, and she struggles to find time for herself. How could she manage this?
That's another really good one. We've had a lot of people actually saying that to us, and I'm really pleased. That's such a great question. People are getting very fatigued, very, very fatigued through Zoom. So there's a couple of things with this. We're meant to be with each other when we're actually communicating. So having back-to-back meetings and doing it through technology is actually really, really fatiguing. So the suggestion is plan for your biological breaks. Plan at least half an hour, not back-to-back Zoom meetings all day. You just won't be able to keep up with it. See if you can negotiate this as part of the team, or just have a couple of hours in the morning and a couple of hours in the afternoon, because people are Zooming here and Zooming there with things. So it's around that negotiation, and it's around also understanding how our brain and body works with that. And you don't want to get cognitively fatigued. So again, that's a lovely negotiated strategy with your team, and a shared understanding as well, because we don't have back-to-back meetings anymore.
Yeah, if I might just add something to that, Penny. I've noticed the difference between the way we normally have meetings and Zoom meetings is when people come into your office. If you book back-to-back meetings, you always have that opportunity to say, I'll be with you in a minute, and you can delay a meeting by 5 minutes, whereas that just doesn't happen with Zoom. They tend to be booked on the hour or on the half hour, and you are going literally straight from one to the next one.
Yeah, and it's funny, if you use that same Zoom link as well, you'll have two people that will come on at the same time, which I've had a couple of times as well. So yeah, you really do need to have that break. Catherine, it's lovely to see your face.
Hey.
Hi.
Hi, sorry, I was the one typing in the messages and I thought I'll just come on the screen.
Good idea.
My work from home mode. Yeah, the question I had was about the back-to-back. So I think it's an organisational issue. What I've noticed is that her very large organisation have just transferred their poor working habits, where they do back-to-back, to the home zone. Working from home, and they just, because it's MS Teams, they can all see each other's calendars. They're just scheduling, even when someone says I'm taking a break. So I've had a couple of clients really struggle with that. How do we, she's single, lives alone. She sits at a computer from 8 a.m. in the morning till 6 p.m. at night without moving.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And yeah, struggle.
Yeah, it is a struggle, and I think it's really important. We might even, I think, do a blog around that as well, so that you can share that. But it is really important when you've got somebody else booking your calendar. It is really about that negotiation, isn't it, and the understanding. And perhaps if you can get her to share what's happening with her, you'll probably find that others are suffering at the same time. So it will be as simple as, I didn't even think of that when I was popping it into your diary. It's all about communication, isn't it?
Yeah. Thanks, Penny. Great.
Yeah, no. Yeah, good. I hope you got a lot from it.
Yes, thank you.
Right, I think we might wind up now. And so thank you everyone for participating. Thank you to Penny, who did a sensational job, and I'm sure you would all agree that some great suggestions there. So thank you, Penny.
Oh, thank you, and enjoy your day, and good luck. We'd love to hear from you. If you put some of these strategies, or all of them, or one of them in place, we'd love to hear from you. So please stay in touch with us.